Welcome to Authenticity Calling, where we get real. Today, I'm here with my friend, my fellow coach. She is a transformational coach. Her business is called Inspire Possibilities to support people to waking up to what's possible. Please welcome Sweta Patel. And if you don't mind telling us a little bit about your mission and vision for your business or even your values behind it, because that's so important to me here.
Yeah. Hi, Ralitza. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited to uncover whatever comes up for in our conversation today. And yeah, my mission is to really help people that have been working hard to create this life that, looks so beautiful on the outside, yet they're feeling disconnected on the inside and, maybe confused and after working so hard, they feel a lack of balance and really ultimately just not feeling fulfilled inside. And so, what I want to help people see is what's possible and that it can be easy and they can find balance and they can also find fulfillment without carrying any guilt for actually feeling happy in their life.
I love that. And I love how you took us through the journey because I feel like that's so much of the way that we show up in the world. And especially these days, like there's so much guilt and shame and blame and competition and just so much attached to what we're creating. And I mean, we've talked about this before, but that work hard, play hard mentality. And yeah, it's a recipe for burnout. It's a recipe for disaster. And so, yeah, I just love how you do what you do, how you serve in the world. I really see coaching as serving. So I just want to thank you because I think there are so many people out there who are doing the thing, but because they're blocked internally, and that's like the biggest gift of transformational coaching. I'm such a healer, and this is my modality. And obviously, we're mirrors, and it's yours too. So, yeah, to me, it's so important to see that it's not the external world that's wrong. And I feel like people will continue to work hard, strive to achieve all of these things and want to get even more on the outside without recognizing that it's actually something that's missing on the inside.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And that was me. That was me for so many years. And
Mm,
um, I've been doing this now for a couple of years. I've been on my journey longer than that because I've always had this inner voice saying there's something else. And
mm,
what I wasn't doing was listening to that inner voice. I was
mm,
looking for the answers on the outside. I was always chasing the promotion, like thinking I was being satisfied and successful by the money, the title, and all the things that were happening in my career. Um, but yeah, there's been multiple moments, key moments, I would say, or wake up calls. But ultimately, what I learned was none of that was really bringing me all the things I thought that I
oh,
was looking for. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, we
Yeah.
could go into that. So I just want to dial it back a little bit because I know that you've had a big successful career, but I really don't know what you ever did. So I'm just curious if you can tell me a little bit about that because yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know why. I can't believe I haven't asked, but and I feel like with coaching, so many people will be drawn to your story because like they identify with part of it, and that's obviously who we attract. But I'm just curious for myself, like what did you do? What were your roles? What were your titles that you know,
Yeah.
you should have taken so much pride in and still didn't feel so, filled up
Yeah.
and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my career's taken quite a journey over different titles and a couple of industries. Mostly I was in the financial services industry. Ultimately, where I, ended before I chose to leave the corporate world, I was the director of product strategy and innovation at a small financial services company. Prior to that, as I'd mentioned, I had a couple of wake up calls just a few years prior, I was in what I thought was my dream job.
mm,
I was traveling the world. I was eating fancy dinners, drinking fancy wines, and I just felt like really on top of my game. And what ended up happening is I got laid off due to a merger and acquisition. And so it was almost like the rug was pulled out beneath me,
Mm.
especially when I thought I was in the height of my career. And so, yeah, really, all in all, your a typical corporate career where you're just climbing the ladders and, like I said, chasing that title and beautiful bonuses and really amazing, financial compensation. Yet there was that thing that was missing for me. So,
Wow.
mhm.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for kind of taking us through that. But yeah, your journey is, I think, the journey of so many successful women, whether it's
Mhm.
in finance or whether it's in other areas. But that feeling of like, I finally have it all,
Yeah,
yet there's something missing.
yeah,
So I love that as a coach, you see this as an opportunity for growth, right? Like you're seeing it as, oh, life happened for me so that I could slow it down, dial it back, and really give myself what I truly need.
yeah,
However, in that moment, how did you recognize, or maybe you didn't, but what would be something that I guess our listeners, our clients, and usually I don't like to speak to listeners, but I think this is really important to distinguish. At what moment did you recognize that something was missing, or did you see this as a gift? What was that
yeah,
thing? You said there was a few moments, the
yeah.
wake-up calls. What does a wake-up call sound, look, and feel like in your body?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I didn't know it right away, right? I was like, how could this happen? I worked so hard for so many years. Life just looked so beautiful on the outside. How did this just, like I said, the rug got pulled out from beneath me?
Mm-hmm.
How does that just happen? It took maybe a couple of weeks, and there was this moment, and it was such a simple question. I was invited to a party. It was around the holidays. And the thought came to me, if somebody asks me, what do you do? What am I going to say?
Mm.
And that's such a typical question when you go to a party. The first thing people say is like, so what do you do? Where do you
Yeah.
work?
Yes.
And I thought, well, what am I going to say? Because I don't work.
Mm.
And in that moment, I realized how much my identity was tied to
Oof.
my career. And
Yeah.
I am a mom, I'm a wife, a daughter, friend, and there's all these other beautiful parts of my life. One, I think I was dismissing those parts and saying, I can't just say these are the things I do. Um, but mostly it really led me to say, if I'm not my career, then who am I?
Oh.
Yeah. And that's,
Oh.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna let that one land because I feel like that's such an important question. And that's something that I start my mastermind with is introduce yourself. Who are you? I would love to know more about you. Tell me something, you know? And that is usually the first thing that we come up with is what do we do for our career instead of who am I really? Which, what does that mean? Like, it's so subject to interpretation and your experience in the world. But I think we don't recognize, and I mean, in the coaching world, we know that whatever we identify with, we're stuck with. And so I just think it's such a beautiful opportunity. And I think one of the most clarifying questions you could ask yourself is, who am I?
yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. I love your awareness around that. And so what was, I'm just, I'm in your journey now. What was your
yeah,
answer for yourself at that time?
yeah. Yeah, it was, first of all, I realized it's a gift.
Mm,
Life just gave me a gift
mm,
because if I get to really stop and ask myself, who am I? Then this is the gift that I've been looking for. And what I
mm,
realized was I get to decide who I am.
mm,
Even if I don't know who I am right here in this moment, then let me explore what that is.
mm, mm,
And, this was about 4 years ago, on the dot. And that is truly what I believe is the beginning of my coaching journey without
mm.
me realizing that
Yes.
I was going to become a coach. And so what I started to ask myself is, what do I love to do? Where do
Mm,
I find enjoyment? And
mhm,
am I allowed to just simply read the books I want to read? Or
mm.
like, if I had all the time in the world, what would I read? What would I
Oh,
listen to? What would I watch?
oh,
And trust that as long as I'm doing things that feel aligned to me, that that's going to unfold into whatever I'm meant to be doing. And so really, I think it was the beginning of me looking inwards
Mm-hmm.
to discovering who I am is asking what feels good, what aligns
Mm.
me. Mm-hmm.
I love that. And again, I just want to just like soak it all in because my soul is feeling so fulfilled hearing that right now. And part of my calling is to call people, our whole world forward, to
Mm-hmm.
embrace more of our feminine energy and that being energy, that receiving energy, that rest, relax, restore, do what you feel called to do, follow your intuition, and away from this constant doing, this constant achievement, this constant structure and organization and function, and that masculine energy that we've all taken on. And as you were sharing about the way that you were achieving and how much you were accomplishing in your career, I'm seeing this like boss lady, right? Like this like superwoman. And it's so admirable and it's such a beautiful thing. And what dropped in for me in that moment was, oh, she wasn't embracing her feminine. It's like we have to have that balance. And what a beautiful way and journey that you took us through. But it was like this masculine overdrive, which I see in the world so much. And I see so much suffering in it, not because there's something wrong with women being masculine. I think that is such a beautiful thing to embrace, that we can do it all. And we all must nurture the part of us that is also feminine energy, feminine creator, intuitive, unconditional loving, just that energy of being is so beautiful. And I feel like our world right now is mimicking what we are doing as women, because the feminine is Mother Earth. I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody who it was so powerful. And I think I'll post it as the second podcast just because this kind of explains it a little more. And we talked about this being the first one, and I'm so excited to honor that. And when we talk about Mother Earth, she is mimicking the energy that we have taken on as humanity in this like masculine, aggressive, fighting back. Like we're in the toxic masculine right now. And I feel like that is the reason people are feeling so disconnected,
Mm-hmm.
because the divine masculine, sorry, calls us up to do the thing that our feminine says, hey, this is what we're here to do. This is your purpose in the world. Now let's do it. And taking action is such an important part of coaching. And it's such a beautiful thing. So it's not about rejecting the masculine, but really embracing and being there for it all with our feminine. And I just love and honor and respect so much that you just intuitively knew what you needed in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was you recognizing the calling. And so I love that so much. And so what is it that called you then forward into coaching? Because this is the Authenticity Calling podcast, and the purpose is
Yeah.
to inspire possibilities of what could be my thing, what
Yeah.
could be. And so I hear that you followed your callings to nurture yourself. You followed what did I want to do in that moment? And it's so similar to my journey, and mine was a little more drastic. It was through a major depression. Like I was asking, why is the sky blue? But
Yeah.
it's basically the same thing. Like who are you really? Like what are you here
Yeah.
to do? What's going on? Like let's reset, because where you're at right now, it's not working. And
Yeah.
let's dial you way back. Well, I was taken way back. Like I felt like a 5-year-old asking, why is the sky blue? And like, who am I? Who am I really? I had gotten to a level of self-rejection. I wanted to be the perfect Indian bride, you know? And
Yeah.
so I had rejected everything about myself to the point where I was not Ralitza anymore. I
Yeah.
didn't even claim my own name. And
Mm.
so that question of who am I is so important. And I think so many people, it's a reawakening.
Yeah.
It's an invitation by God, the universe, spirit, whatever you identify with, to really be honest with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, like, the question was like, how did that lead me to coaching and where I am now?
Mhm.
So though I heard that inner voice, I still didn't step in
Mm,
completely.
Mm.
And, after so many years of living one way, I couldn't just flip that switch and, figure out what I wanted to do. And so there was a lot of trust. Like I said, I started to listen to that inner voice slowly,
Mhm.
doing the things that, felt aligned. However, I actually chose to go back to the corporate world. I was on a 4-month break. I found a new position. That was the one that I just spoke about, was the last position in corporate. And I went back for another 3 years. It still hasn't even been a full year since I left. And I don't know that I fully embraced that inner voice. And so I kept going. I kept going the only way I knew how. And
Mm.
what really kind of changed things for me was maybe 2 years into that, where my second wake up call, or one of my bigger wake up calls, happened. My daughters were 10 and about 12 at the time. And they were both really struggling. It reminded me of an age where I struggled. I
Mm.
struggled with, like, it's that age, we're in middle school, we're learning about ourselves, we're growing up, we're going through a lot of changes. It's also a very significant age for me where my relationship with my mom changed.
Mm.
And I started to see it unfold before
Mhm.
me, that there was a lot of things that I was projecting onto
Mhm.
my relationship with my daughters
Mhm.
that I was still carrying from that
Mhm.
age.
Mhm.
And it wasn't looking the way I wanted to, my
Yeah.
relationship with my daughters. And my younger one was really struggling at the time. And she needed some extra help to be able to get through all the things that she was going through. One of them being anxiety at a pretty high scale. And that was that moment where I asked myself again, like, what am I doing? And
Mm.
why did, no regrets for ending back up, in the corporate world. But I said, this is it. This is my chance. If I want to help heal my children
Mhm.
and not, have them go on the same journey that I did, then
Mhm.
it's time for me to put aside this money and these titles and do what I can for them. And so
Mm.
that's when I really stepped into, like, what courses can I take? What can I learn? How can
Mhm.
I understand how their brains are working, why people behave the way they do? And I owned it. I realized
Mm.
that everything they're doing and being is because, of course, there's two of us as parents, but we're parents, they're innocent children. And
Mm.
it's up to us to be able to guide them and
Mm.
teach them as much as we can. And so I got into some classes, and I really started, like, I went into this course. This was in 2022. If all I learn from here is, being able to release any of the things that I've been carrying and
Mhm.
passing that on to my girls, then I'm, happy with that.
Mhm.
However, very quickly, 2 months in, I saw so much power and beauty in what I was learning that I thought, why am I keeping this? Why would I keep this to myself? I want to teach. And I always had this sense in me that I'm a teacher.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want to, and I've always been that person people came to for advice, and,
Yes.
friends and family. But here it was all coming together. And
Mhm.
it's when it hit me that, a few years ago, when I said, like, as long as I'm doing what I love and what feels good, then I trust whatever's meant to be will unfold. And I remember just saying it out loud to one of my classmates, I'm going to be a coach,
Yeah.
and I'm going to share this gift with other people
Mhm.
and teach other people how to find this for themselves. And so really that was the true beginning of my coaching journey.
Oh, I love that. And I got the truth chills. As you know, I call them the truth
Yeah.
chills when it just falls through and
Yeah.
everything aligns. And I get that so often for my clients. And I know you're super intuitive with your clients too. And that's one of your gifts. And the gift of really being like a spiritual
Mhm.
leader, a spiritual guide is the way that I really see the work that we do. And like that coaching space is really calling people forward to see what's true for them. And it's so much more than this sort of like traditional coaching lens, because I feel like a lot of times coaching is used, but it's really not true transformation. It's like, oh, let's do some habit change, let's do some mindset change, which is wonderful. I think
Yeah.
it's an amazing start. But I feel like so much more of what we're capable of accomplishing, diving that deep into ourselves, asking those powerful questions, creating space
Yeah.
to find out, to be curious, like you did, like I did, like so many of us in transition do, is to ask ourselves those important questions of who am I really?
Yeah.
And what I just want to reflect, I don't know, I'm sure you notice it, but just I want to reflect that in slowing down and in identifying that your values are actually rooted in family and rooted in what is my top priority to my children. That's
Mhm.
something that came through for me really powerfully on my healing journey as well, is wait a second, I'm a spirit mom to all these other people, but how good of a job am I doing at home with my son? And I really also felt that calling to slow down, because I'm on the Enneagram. I'm a three wing too. I'm an achiever, helper. And so for me, my value, my validation comes from my achievements, doing, being three women in the same one human
Yeah.
body,
Yeah.
being the 9 to 5 business owner, single mom, and like a bunch of other things too. Right. And so, yeah, I just want to honor and appreciate and kind of bring the lens back to what really works.
Mhm.
And that is prioritizing our values. And in that moment, you thought, okay, well, what can I do
Yeah.
to prioritize my children? What else can I learn? And
Yeah.
then recognizing your calling, your purpose of teaching, right? Like your capacity as a spirit mom, the way I
Mhm.
see you and the way I really feel called to you. Um, when I was in a moment the other day, I was beside myself. And I was just like, I didn't even think about it. I just automatically called you. I was like, do you have time? Can I call? And you were like, yeah, of course, this is perfect
Yeah.
time. And of course, the universe aligned us so well.
Yeah.
But that calling, I feel like, is so important to focus on values, which is why it's one of the first things, I do with clients. I'm sure you do with clients. Most of
Mhm.
us do with clients.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just bringing it back and the awareness of the compassion that you had for yourself, because I think that's something for me has been a learning journey.
Right.
And I know for me, I feel personally so much more compassionately held by you when I'm able to express where I'm at. You always dial me back and you always bring me to this lens of like, okay, how could you hold yourself a little more compassionately, like that little bit more feminine? And so, yeah, I just want to learn a little bit about your compassionate lens. Is it something that you've kind of always had and fallen into, or is that also something that developed as you gave yourself more space to sort of embrace your feminine, or how has that journey been?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, I just wanted to say I'm with you. I'm a three wing too. And so I get it. That's the achiever in us and the helper in us. So it's no surprise to me that we're here doing what we do, because I think it's such a beautiful way to embrace that three wing too. Um, but yeah, with compassion, I don't know. Like, I believe that we all have it within us and we always we've just not been able to see it.
Mm,
That is what I believe, that it is in there and it's always
mm,
been in there. We just had some, shade over it. We weren't able,
mm,
things in the way, our
mm,
stories in the way, our thoughts in the way, maybe even just, whatever we've been carrying for so
mm,
many years. And so what I've discovered is by, dissolving these beliefs that I had and the stories that I had that I've been carrying around for so many years, is when I started to see this compassion that's within me. So I think that's part of it. The other part is, yeah, absolutely. I think it's like putting your face mask on first. It's hard to have compassion, true compassion for
mm,
others, unless we're putting it towards ourself first.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just dial that back because and I know we started a little late, so I just want to make sure you have time still to dive a little bit into this. But um, so we talk about this all the time. We say this like, oh, you have to fill your own cup and overflow. This
Yeah.
is what we're talking about.
Yes.
Filling your own cup. We
Yeah.
think as helpers on the Enneagram, and I'll explain the Enneagram in another podcast. And actually, our mentor coach has a beautiful podcast that's up about the Enneagram. So I'll post that in the show notes. But the Enneagram is this old ancient way of figuring out how we show up in the world. It asks a bunch of questions and then it basically gives you a profile, and you're one of 9 numbers and the wing that's next to that. So 3, wing 2 means achiever is the 3, and then you're either a 2 or a 3 wing 4, which is next to it. And so as achievers and helpers, we see our value in the world. We seek validation through helping and achieving. And so when we focus first on others instead of ourselves, that is a projection. That is us seeking to help the world in the areas which we actually want help and support. And so in coaching, we actually take that back and we turn in. So the coming back full circle to the beginning of our conversation of you were doing all the things out there, but there was still something missing in here. And I feel like that's exactly where right now we're recognizing, I think, as a collective, something's not quite right inside. And I feel like so many of us are scared to find out what that is out of fear that we can't self-source it, that people just ignore it. Like you said, you had the intuition to do something, but you ignored it. I also had so many intuitive calls to change things in my life, and I ignored them because of fear of the unknown.
Oh, yeah.
And now in my work, like that is, I face that in healthcare all the time. In my 9 to 5, I'm a transformational coach who supports change in healthcare. That is what I was called to do. And people ask me, why did you study medicine if you're so holistic minded? And I
Yeah.
was used to say, well, you have to be in it to change it. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant, but that was one of those inner voices coming through. And I just trusted it. I said, okay, I have to be in it to change it. We'll see what that means later. But I think a lot of people don't even have that sort of relationship with what comes through for them and the way that life serves them. So in that moment where you had to stop yourself and ask yourself, like, wait a second, life gave you an opportunity to ask yourself, who am I really? And it's like sometimes life will drastically shift when you ignore the voice. You keep ignoring. You're ignoring the signs from the external world. You're ignoring your inner voice. You're ignoring that your relationships are turning into chaos. All the
Yeah.
value systems that we have, they're all plummeting because we're so hyper focused on that external thing that we think will bring us our internal desire. And so dialing it back to compassion. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about compassion, just like open source streaming energy, streaming consciousness. What is compassion really? Like, how do we self-source compassion coming from this masculine overdrive? Because I really do believe compassion is one of those things that when we allow ourselves space to just be, and a lot of that has to be like be vulnerable
Yeah.
and really
Yeah.
be with ourselves.
Yeah.
How do we source compassion? Because so much of the way that I function is I'm going to be hard on myself, and that's how I'm going to get through this moment.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah.
know personally that's where my growth edge is with my compassion, because I don't know that I grew up in a space that was very compassionate. And so I don't have a good mentor for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. I hear that. And, it's not the first time that this has come up in conversations or, when I've coached someone, if they don't have that from when they grew up, how do they source that? I think it really begins with awareness and really understanding why whatever is happening in our life is happening, and that it's a reflection of our inner world, right? So we've been taught that life is a mirror. And like you said, Mother Nature is going to reflect, the frequency that we're on. And so if we're all in chaos and control and, on a negative vibe, then the world is reflecting that, as it is right now. And so I get the sense that when we begin to become aware of why we behave the way we do and what are those stories and the things that are clouding our beliefs, then we can start to remove those. And when we remove those, we're going to discover the love that's been there the whole time.
When you say remove those, it's like removing veils of misunderstandings that we have about ourselves, that we have about the world. Yeah. So and we call those, like, whether it's subconscious or whether they're conscious, but these are the blocks that we coach around. And so, it's so interesting because that's, I describe it as removing veils, but also the blocks that we have, in the moment, it feels like this big, huge wall in front of you. And it's like, okay, you can't go anywhere. But then we in-source, we look in, we dive deep, we do all the things. And so we outgrow the block, which feels like a never-ending wall, and all of a sudden we're bigger than it, and then we use it as a stepping stone towards our evolution. And in that moment, like right now, honestly, I'll be honest, I was super triggered just now, and I'm having a hard time staying with the conversation because of a moment that came up. And one of my friends reflected to me, and maybe we can just like coach this, because I think it would be really powerful, and it would serve also kind of what's coming up right now. I really trust that somebody's at the same point right now, and they need to be, our world needs to be dialed back, let's be honest. So can you help me to find a little bit of compassion with myself in this story of, I was talking to my friend, and I shared what I'm going through in my dating world right now. And he said to me, well, you know what, Ralitza, maybe you're just too smart, maybe you're too intelligent, maybe you're too. And I was like, wait a second. Hold on. How am I supposed to find compassion for myself if I'm hearing, the way you show up in the world is too strong, you're never going to find a man, or it's too much, like you're just too much, you're too much of a woman, like you're too much. And I just want to fall into this like deep depression, and the energy which sucks me into, it's like this energetic vortex of like self-loathing almost. It's just this melancholy of, well, if this is the truth of who I am, if I'm too much, now what? Now I have to dull myself to not be too much so that I can be seen. Like, what does that even mean? And so, I'm going to hand it over to you because it's alive.
No, thank you for, being open to being vulnerable here and, sharing this story and then giving me the opportunity to walk you through it. So what I'm hearing is a friend reflected to you that the reason the relationships are not working out for you right now is because you're too much. You're too smart, too intelligent, too strong. And that just makes you want to, go into a cave, is what I'm hearing. Like, and what do you do with that? How do you move forward from that? You just want to hide.
Yeah.
So how does that feel when you hear those words, Ralitza, you're too much? How does that feel?
Honestly, it feels like, and because I'm aware of this, that being, one of the things that I meant to work on, it takes me back to this like constant competition with my mother growing up. Again, with the lack of compassion, it's always kind of been, when I show up, it's like I'm threatening, and there's this like jealousy competition thing that's always been there. I never even noticed until one of my friends said, I think your mom's jealous of the relationship you and I have, the friendship that I have with one of my best friends. And I really saw it in that moment, because my mom has really raised me as her friend rather than as this authoritative, like maternal, safe figure that I can go to. when
Yeah.
I need support, or this safe figure that I can go to when I've done something really good in the world, for her to be like, I'm so proud of you. I don't think I've ever heard my mother say, I'm
Mhm.
so proud of you. And so I think for me, it triggers that moment where, and my dad says it all the time, and I think I have dad wounds to work on, which is what I'm working this week. But I mean, I think all of us have both, a little bit of both, because we came here to be triggered by our families, and we can go back to that. But just staying in this moment, yeah, that's what comes up for me, is that competition, and that's not what I want to create in a relationship.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I hear that, I'm like, oh, if I'm too much, then I'm bringing competition,
Okay.
right? Then I'm going to be seen as someone to compete with. And that is not the relationship that I want for myself in my partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm really hearing, I just want to acknowledge your awareness and where this comes from for you, and that you're able to see that this goes really far back with your relationship with your mom, and how
Mm,
you felt when, about your relationship, that you felt like a friend versus a daughter. And you felt like if you wanted to go to her for safety, she wasn't there. If you wanted her to, be there to be proud of you, you didn't ever hear those words.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. So just acknowledging your awareness, and just
Yeah.
take a moment to give space to that little girl
Mm,
who feels that if she's too much, she's inviting competition.
mm,
It's not okay. It's not okay to be too much.
mm.
And what do you notice? What do you notice as you tune in? How old?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, uh, it takes me back to the moment where I got straight A's, and so I got glasses. It was in sixth
Mhm.
grade. I got glasses, and because I could see finally,
Mhm.
I all of my grades improved and I got straight A's. And oh wow, this is wild that this is what comes up. But
Yeah.
my dad, so like both of my parents were so proud of me, but my
Mhm.
dad was really genuinely proud of me. And I think he had a pride in me that he had never expressed or shared with my mom. Like I think she thought he was incapable of having that sort of, like, whether it was love, whether it was pride, whether it was whatever that thing is. But that hit my mom, like he's never looked at me that way, and I have never actually recognized this part of the story. So thank you for bringing my awareness to that. But it was that right there that, for the first time my parents both see me,
Mhm.
and I thought, oh, that's my achiever, but I never drew it back to the competitiveness. And so I think subconsciously I felt my too muchness is
Mhm.
hurting my mom.
Mhm. Yeah. So if
Mm.
I'm too much, I'm hurting my mom. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And just really kind of bringing it back to compassion.
Mhm.
Here's a woman who just wanted to feel loved by her husband the way that she's seeing him love her daughter. And
Mhm.
that brought maybe a sadness in her,
Mm.
of resistance.
Mm. Not surprisingly, she's trying to call me right now and message me right now and get my attention right now. Like, the world is so funny. The universe,
Yeah.
the way it reflects everything to us. Every time I go deep into myself,
Mhm.
she always calls. It's like
Yeah.
every time I have this opportunity to heal myself, to be
Mhm.
with myself, to unleash this truth of who I am,
Yeah.
she's always right there to, like, put up my flame the way that I'm seeing and
Yeah.
interpreting
Yeah.
my world coming back and being like, whoa, 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 wait
Yeah.
a second, little girl, not yet. So there you go. There it is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
for us to serve this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
The
And that's
compassion, it's like it's put out by guilt right away.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. And yeah, life is funny. that she just happened to call right now. It was exactly how it was meant to be. And there's a gift here. It's, and I know you as a coach have held so much compassion for so many people. Where are you holding that compassion for yourself?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't even, in this moment, I didn't even have the boundary to just be like, nope, I'm focusing on me right now. Like you don't get to. The boundary is not there.
Yeah,
Clearly, I want to now communicate and keep her safe to say, I'll be down in 15 minutes, right? Instead of staying with myself. So that is
yeah,
my pattern. My
yeah,
pattern is to move away from myself and take care of others, which of
yeah,
course that's the pattern as a three-wing too. And I'm seeing so strongly my need to turn in, to
mhm,
establish those healthy agreements. I think boundaries are really tough for some people. And it was
yeah,
reflected back to me is that actually a boundaries really, truly, if it's effective, it is showing the other person that you respect them by communicating your needs and asking them to step up for you. Actually, you're giving them an invitation to be the big one and to
yeah,
support you. And so I think if I did meet her that way and I said, you know, this is what I'm working through, this is what I'm really, really being vulnerable is my
yeah,
answer, I guess,
yeah,
to myself is how can I be more vulnerable with myself? How can I be more vulnerable in the world and really, yeah, not have that strong shell,
yeah,
not have that, it's funny because it's again being not too strong, but it's
yeah.
coming from a place of really wanting to insource and
Mhm,
find that compassion within me. So taking the option of being soft instead of being hard
mhm,
and powerful and strong through this, I just want to melt into it. And that's where I'm really hearing the calling, and this is such a skill that to be able to hear it and recognize it and go into it. A lot of coaching sessions, I'm just reflecting for our audience that it's not usually this clear all the time, and sometimes it takes a few sessions to get to this depth and clarity, and that's perfectly normal. So I don't want someone to think like, oh, my coaching session didn't go this way.
right. Yeah,
um and I think there's still like many things that I'm maybe not aware of in this moment because it's mine.
yeah,
So I would love your guidance to just really catch myself instead of escaping. Because part of
yeah,
me, again, I can see myself going into my
mhm,
explaining,
yeah,
going into my
mhm,
coach hat, even to,
mhm,
share with our audience what's going on
yeah,
here. No, let's bring it back and actually find
yeah.
the compassion. So I'm here for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. And so much words of wisdom that you just shared in the last 3 or 4 minutes. All the while, I said, no, Ralitza, we're not going to allow you to just, push it aside and, go back into your mind is exactly what just happened here.
Mm,
But, I recognize that you also saw that for yourself. And yeah, my intention was to take you right back to where you are. What I do want to reflect to you is initially your the come from, where did that come from? I don't want to be too much because it invites competition.
mm,
That was really coming from fear of creating competition,
mm-hmm,
pushing people away
mm-hmm,
to you've already led yourself to I don't want to be too much, not because of competition, but just because it's an invitation to drop in. It's an invitation to slow down. And so you're already seeing that not being too much, it's not about coming from a place of fear anymore. Now it's coming from a place of love. There's room to
mm-hmm,
make space for the little girl in you that
mm-hmm,
thinks she's being too much.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm really thinking about my deeper desire as you were sharing that, what really became crystal clear for me was why did I not want to be too much is because I really wanted my mom to love me. Like I wanted her to genuinely, unconditionally love and hold me. And I think that's like I've had that separation, I think my whole life. Like it's almost like I've always felt like I'm a burden. I've
Mhm.
always felt like both my parents would have been happier had my mom actually aborted me. instead of being here. And at the same time, in my birth story and my reflection, I came on a Sunday. She was at this holy monastery when her water broke. She was trying to go through this cave. And this is a real monastery in Bulgaria. And so I know that I'm here with a big purpose, and that's what comes up for me. It's like they would have been happier if I wasn't here,
Yeah.
because I'm looking for what I really deep down in my heart have not been able to receive, is that unconditional maternal love of like, I'm perfect just as I am, and celebrated for my strengths and celebrated for my not strengths, for the things that I'm not so good at. I'm still celebrated
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
having to make up for it and be strong and push through and show up and, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
prioritize others. And
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take a moment to find that love for you. There's a little girl in you that's just looking for unconditional love and to be held. And knowing that you have a son, where is that love within you for him? That motherly love where you accept him just as he is. Where does that live within your body when you think about your son?
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
um yeah, it's like between my heart and my gut. It's like that energy field where everything starts.
Yeah. Yeah. Just take a moment and really take a breath into that energy. And just imagine that energy expanding through your whole body. And from this place, what do you want to tell the little girl who had straight A's in sixth grade, who just wanted to hear her mom say, "I'm proud of you"?
I always knew you could do it. You are so capable. You're so brilliant. You're so loved. You were so perfect even when you were not getting straight A's. I was so proud of you. I am so proud of you. You're perfect just as you are, and nobody else has to see that but you.
Just take a moment to soak in such beautiful, loving words.
Part of me wants to run away, and the other part of me is like, oh, I just heard the truth. Let me just settle in with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally okay. The part that wants to run away is totally okay. Do you want to get curious and see what maybe that part is resisting?
That part is like, but if I'm okay without them, then what? Then I don't need them anymore. And then what?
Yeah. 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 Them being your parents, them being the relationships, or anyone.
Yeah, I guess in the grand scope of things, anyone. Like, and yeah, consciously, if it brings me back to relationships, it's like this idea of I don't need anyone, which I don't want to have. Like, I really believe that we are all meant to be in partnership, and 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 it's not out of a place of needing someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some wisdom in this part of you that knows it doesn't need anyone.
It wants to need someone.
It wants to need someone, and that's okay. Maybe that part's very connected to the part of you that wants the love and wants to be held.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this part to receiving that now?
Yeah, I can see that part coming to the other part that's like, okay, I'm ready to receive. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Just receive. Let it soak into your cells. That energy between your heart and your gut. Just let that spread to all parts of you.
What's coming through is you can ask for help, but not from this place of like aggressive assertiveness, but just from this place of vulnerability and compassion. Like that self-compassion is really strong right now. That
Beautiful.
feeling of like I have to do it all by myself, but and I think a lot of what is laid out for me is like, why aren't you, doing more? It's always that question of like, why aren't you doing more? It's like, well, I can only do so much. And you're also here to help me, right? Yeah, I think that is really a challenge for me, is to ask for help because I'm so used to doing it all by myself. And to be able to trust people, which it's interesting that live that I sent you yesterday about, like business things, that it comes back to that, is like being able to trust other people that they'll show up. And I think that's where it comes from. It's like, I have this story, this veil that other people don't show up when I trust them. So I'm just going to take care of it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And trust doesn't grow overnight. And this story has been carried for so many years within you. So is it okay that you take baby steps in building trust?
Yeah, I'm going to have to play with that with the world around me. Because I've had many opportunities in the last few days to trust other people, and I have, and they haven't shown up. And so there it is. To still show up in compassion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a gift in everything. Did you ask for help today?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And you allowed yourself to be in your feminine and receive, and you found compassion. That compassion within you was sourced within you, and you tuned into that. And what became available was some answers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to do some compassionate self-forgiveness if you don't mind guiding
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. That is
Thank
exactly
you.
to lead you next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to start you off, I think, with the biggest one. I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I'm too much.
Yeah. I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I'm too much, that I'm too strong, that I'm too intelligent, that I'm too whatever, any of it. I'm getting hot. I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I'm too much. And the truth is, I am exactly who I need to be, how I need to be, where I need to be, showing up in the world in service to first myself, my son, my callings, my purpose, and turning in. I need to be all of those things, and I embrace it and I love it. I love that I'm all of those things. And, when it comes back to partnership, it takes me back to something I read about, like, dear woman, stop playing small to try to fit into the hands of a man who can't hold you. It's like the right man will be able to hold it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clearing.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I can't trust people to show up.
Yeah. I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I can't trust people to show up. And the truth is, those people who are aligned will always be there. They'll always show up. Oh, I love you. My spirit tribe will always be there to catch me. And the people that don't show up are not meant to be there on the journey with me. And the truth is, I'm surrounded by so many amazing human beings that there is no scarcity in someone being able to show up for me. And the fact that someone's not showing up, as I always say about rejection, and rejection is protection, but rejection even more is redirection. It's like,
Yeah.
where you were looking for that thing to be met, that's not the right place.
Yeah.
Let me guide you. Let me show you. The universe is like, here, this is where you really need to get it from. Like, this is what alignment feels like. Yes.
Yeah. Come back inside. Always come back inside. The answer is always there.
And I do, like, I trust so much the universe for bringing me to where I ought to be, the people who are meant to support me and the experiences and the situations. And I guess I still have this resistance of it has to look the way that I expected it to, or, yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah. Can you make space for that part of you that thinks it needs to know how it
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's
This is
always
a
had to know. She's always had to be the one to figure it out. She's always, I mean, yeah, with immigrant parents, I was an immigrant. We came here when I was 3. My parents didn't know anything about Canada, the language, the culture, anything at all. And yeah, I guess I was that child who, I should know better because I'm growing up in the Canadian culture, and I'm growing up, I went from not speaking Bulgarian at all to, like, suddenly, I mean, English, to suddenly speaking it perfectly overnight, it seemed like, to my parents, who were struggling so much to just be able to string a
Yeah.
few words together. So yeah, like, I don't always have to be the one who has the answers. And I love that in coaching, like, this is the space where I get to ask others powerful questions and they get to show up for themselves. And I don't actually have to have the answers. I don't have to have a single answer.
Yeah.
And the wisdom comes through me because I'm so open, because I'm so aware and so accepting that I don't have to have it, and it just comes, like, it
Yeah.
just serves. It's just there.
Yeah. Yeah. You love is serving through you. And as long as you're holding a container of love, and that takes me back to this idea of what you feel about being too much coming from fear versus how you felt about too much coming from love. And it automatically changed. It allowed you to be vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, you can accept and receive the help that you're wanting. You can accept and receive the love and being held. Yeah.
So juicy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It always
Oh,
comes back to like, oh, it gets to be so juicy.
yeah, exactly. And this
Mm.
is this is carried as a theme throughout our entire conversation. When we fall back into our feminine and we slow down and we give ourselves the opportunity to be vulnerable and receive, it doesn't mean we have to get rid of our masculine. We can embrace both. It's about having a balance between both. And just because you and I, we released a lot of that masculine energy from, previous careers and the way we were, it doesn't mean that for me, I have not let go. There's still the achiever in me. There's still the woman in me who wants my strategic goals. But what I've learned is to balance that with my feminine. And
So
so, yes,
beautiful.
and we can
Yeah. Yeah.
find the balance. We can be vulnerable and receive, and we can give as well and hold a space for our clients. Yeah. Yeah, I see you receiving that.
Yes, and yeah, absolutely. It's not about self-rejection. It's not about denying my masculine. It's like I automatically just want to hold hands with myself because it's like, yes, I've got you. Like the feminine wants to step up for the masculine and say, it's okay to be soft. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay not to have it all figured out. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show your emotions. And it's also okay to be scared and to want to be strong, but you don't always have to be strong. Like it's okay to just be exactly as you are. And yeah, that masculine hardness softens up and it's like, oh, okay, the feminine is here to catch me. And because my feminine is now here to catch me, and I'm safe with the feminine. Oh, that is something in our world that we need to address. Because I'm safe with the feminine, the softness, that emotional side of me, I can turn it and be there and then come back even more powerful and stronger, but from a, like you say, from a source of love and true capacity rather than burnt out, pushing hard, overdrive, that toxic masculinity. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Thank you.
from a place of love versus a place of fear,
Yeah.
from true strength versus like an illusion of
Yeah.
strength. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, this was everything. I do realizing the time now that I have to go, but this was just everything. And I would love if we could hop on to like
Yeah.
dissect this a little bit for the
Yeah.
audience and really be able to serve as well.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for today. That was everything. And I feel like experiential learning is so much more
Yeah.
powerful than talking about
Sure.
it. So yeah, I think maybe even just inviting, if anyone has any questions about what they just saw and heard, to please message either of us. I'll put your social media. Is there something that you're doing in the world right now that you would like to share with our audience or invite them into?
Yeah, I really this is just about and it's a reflection of me and where I'm in my journey is finding our voice and
Mm,
really trusting and connecting our
mhm,
voice to that inner voice and really being true to ourselves. And so I want to call people forward, people
mm,
that are ready to see what's on the other side, people that are ready to do the work that might feel hard,
mhm,
but they have a deeper knowing that there's something else. And so my mission right now is to call those people forward, those that are ready and committed to change and want to do what we're doing and step up into their true power. And so,
I love that. I love that. And you hold such a beautiful, as everyone just saw, such a beautiful, compassionate, and just, yeah, really capable space of like, for me to soften into my feminine is not easy for me. So I just have to say that was everything. So yeah. And I mean, I've been coached by like the coach of coaches, and to me, I have not been able to access. So just thank you. Thank you
yeah.
from like the depths of my soul. All of my angels are like, yay, Sweta, you
Yeah.
did it. We've been waiting for this. So thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you with
Yeah.
like everything that I have. And yes, if you're looking for a coach, Sweta is like top notch. And I mean, you saw it. I don't have to say anything, but it is just such a gift to be with you. It's such a gift to be, yeah, just in this world with you. And thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for answering your calling. Thank you for doing this with me, outside of, your comfort zone and just showing up for it all. Like yeah, I am so inspired and amazed by you. Truly inspired
Thank
by
you.
possibilities. I
Yeah.
love it. You are who you
Exactly.
say you are, and it is so
Yeah.
powerful. So yes, please, I will post your information, like, follow, share, all of the beautiful things. Let's uplift this world. I don't
Yeah.
believe actually in competition. I believe that when we uplift each other, more beauty happens in the world. And so I love you so much and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was beautiful to witness. And I thank you again for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun, and just beautiful conversation and really eye-opening. And I really hope that the audience received, just one simple shift that they can have in their life, or just one switch that went off in their mind of what could be different and what's possible. So thank you again. And I look forward to connecting again and unpacking this a little
Thank
more
you.
next time. Yeah.
Thank you, Sweta. Have a beautiful day.
Yeah. You as well.
Take
Talk
care.